Hey, welcome to this Tech Geeks video. My name's Paul. I thought today it'd be really cool to just talk about one of the new vendors on the market here, certainly for us in Australia. Look, I want to just make this clear. We don't get promotional or very rarely get promotional equipment to test. We actually buy all of our stuff we test it and use it ourselves. I think that's the only way to do a fair comparison or a conversation. And we don't run this YouTube channel to make money. Our YouTube channel is about information flow, about connecting our customers with products that we think are good for them, for linking them with being able to see what a product looks like before they purchase. So maybe the way we set out our stall is very slightly different. So we came across this new vendor that's coming to Australia, been out in America a little bit longer and in Europe a little bit longer, called Alta Labs. Alta Labs, I think, is a subsidiary of a larger manufacturer, but is fairly new to this space. Some of the engineers that have worked on this, and this is one of their access points, it's pill-shaped, have worked for Ubiquiti before, and I probably think that Ubiquiti is going to be one of those vendors that Alta is probably gearing themselves up to take on. So do I think there is space for another vendor doing wireless? Look, we have so many vendors in this space at the moment. We have Grandstream launching new stuff all of the time. We've got TP-Link, we've got Ubiquiti, we've got Rugi, we've got Asus, we've got Dratec, we've got D-Link, we've got Netgear. We have so many vendors pumping out access points. Do we think there is a place for it? Well, I'm going to put this into what I would call the prosumer market space. What do I mean by that? The professional consumer. It's not just about price, it's about look, it's about functionality, it's about feel, and probably more importantly, it's about how it makes us feel using the brand. And I think that if we're going to tick one of those boxes or some of them, Alta is probably heading in the right direction for this. The build quality is phenomenal. The support and interaction that you're getting at this moment in time is brilliant. Obviously, how that develops as the company grows, and probably grows quite quickly, it will be interesting to see. But their attention to detail, both in the packaging, do see some of our other videos there, the actual design, the feel of these access points and the features is potentially where it's going to win. So what are some of the key things or some of the key differences that we see? So we might want to set up a guest network, or we might want to have several ways of segregating traffic, giving some priority over the network, maybe some where they're traffic shaped, maybe we want to give some content filtering, web browser or application control. Traditionally, we need to create multiple SSIDs, so multiple network names and different passwords, and have people at home connect to a different wireless network. That's okay, but there are limitations. Although technically you can get to 8 SSIDs, after you get past about 4 SSIDs, the CPU and power of this device and the available wireless channels starts to reduce. And so it does have some impact on the performance. Alta have got away with this. They've got a new way of doing this, and that's why we put these in something like a prosumer category, because we're starting to get features that we maybe see on top-end products, maybe things like Mist. Maybe we see some of the stuff in Cisco Meraki and others that have subscriptions or have ongoing higher expenses. So Alta in this area, very simple, one SSID, and you can have hundreds of different passwords. Each password can be set up to have a different category. It could be rate limiting, it could be putting onto a VLAN, it could be segregated the traffic. It can be, which I think is another feature we'll talk about in a minute, it can be to give those users some content filtering or some application filtering. So I think that that's one big thing that we're seeing that this will catch on to. This makes a network super easy to control. Hey everybody, just browse for this SSID. Here is your password. We get away from the need of having lots and lots of broadcast SSIDs going on. What's one of the other features? One of the other things I think is really cool about this is, again, it's fully cloud managed. We don't need to pay any license fees. We don't need a controller on site. So a big difference over Ubiquiti and TP-Link and MADA. We don't need a controller on site. Obviously for both of those guys, there are paid solutions around it, but these are already calling home. So this is really simple to, again, if you're helping support a customer, send this out as long as you know the serial number, you can start to get the unit connected through the cloud. So that's another great feature. What else? These are application aware. So they know a lot of applications that are running. So we can do basic application control. Maybe we don't want people to get to Facebook. We can block that as an application, or maybe Tor or other applications like that. We can do basic content filtering in here. We can put actual websites that we don't want people to get to. Now listen, it's not a firewall and it's not a fully updatable, customizable URL list, and there will be ways to get around it fairly easily, but it is a great feature to be able to see in a control panel what content is actually already going over your network. So we've got the multiple passwords with single SSID. We've got a control panel that is cloud managed and easy to set up, no software to install. We've got application aware and content filtering on here. We've got wireless bridging. So again, let's compare this to Ubiquiti. Ubiquiti, you can wireless repeat. You can use the wireless uplink feature. So you can have 2 access points that are not wired into a network at all. The first one is wired. The second one will join it and can wirelessly repeat it. You can't downlink from that. So you can't run a cable down and plug it into a switch and then plug computers into it. Well, you can with Ubiquiti. You'd have to be using the AC Mesh Pro, the AC Mesh, or the U6 Mesh. Well, in Alta Labs, everything can mesh. So I can have 2 of these a distance apart, and they will downlink as well. So I can now basically bridge this from the front of the house to the back of the house and downlink to a switch, and then have switch ports there. I can plug my smart TV in using an Ethernet cable, or my laptop, or my Xbox, and now again we can expand our network. So that's a great set of features. We've got VLANs that work over that wireless link as well. So we're already starting to see a bunch of new and different features. We've got ability in some of the switches coming that's going to be exciting to color coordinate the switches, switch ports, to be able to go, well, these are grouped together and have certain identification for them. So I think there's some really exciting bits coming. The pricing is pretty similar to the other guys that are in the prosumer space. The support, like I said, is really responsive. They're listening to features and they're coming with those new features all of the time. So do I think there is a space for another vendor? Yes, I do. Do I think this will take on the higher end suppliers? Yes, I do. And I think we will see some enterprise going for solutions like this where there is no subscription, but they need those super enhanced add-on features that you'd normally only get at the higher grade. A lot of talking there, but hopefully that gives you an idea of why I would choose Alta Labs and why I actually think there is a place for another prosumer wireless vendor in the market. What I'm going to do now, hopefully, is just jump to my computer and I'm just going to show you some of those features in the control panel so you can see the ease of how this works and some of those features that I've talked about. And I'm sure that if I've forgotten something in my mind, I'll bring it back in that portion of the video as well. Okay, so I've just hopped over to my computer. Just going to show you basic around the interface. We'll do some other guides on actually how to set this all up, but I know this is really more a conversation of what do you get, what does it look like. So as we talked about, there's no software to install. You've got 2 options. You can either just go here with a web browser and put in your username and password. You can do this on a smartphone as well. If you're on the same network as the device, then you will be able to accept it, adopt it, whatever you want to call, into the software directly. If you're using the smartphone, I believe it'll use the Bluetooth beacon to connect that. I think there's also an option potentially to add the serial number as well. I have a AP6 on the same network as this, so let's just quickly log in and have a look. This is our dashboard that we get welcome to. The dashboard has a concept of sites. In the site manager, we can create a lot of different site setups, and each one can have a different set of settings. And so we could think about this. A site could be different properties that you own where you've got wireless and you could manage them separately, or you could share the same wireless config across all of them. It could be different offices grouped together. You could be a reseller or an installer and have all of your customer information in there. You can then add users to it as well. in a way that they can have access to their bit of information, but you also got a global access. So we're just going to start here using the one that we've created. We can see that I have a device already on the network waiting to be adopted. So let's just go ahead and hit setup there. That's going to connect us up. There's a concept here that we'll see on the switches and on the access points of colors. Colors are ways of defining groups of access points that are on the same network or share the same network details. So it could be Wi-Fi, for instance, across several properties. So we'll see that again in a moment. So let's just rename this and maybe just call this Office. We can see over here, if I click on the little icon for it, that I've got some of my basic settings in here. I can change my transmit powers. I've got my channel widths that are on there. I've got my basic settings in here. Do I want to leave this fully on all of the time? If it can't see the internet, then we can it'll turn its beacon off. Failover if it can't get a connection using a VLAN, which could be quite good, and mesh. So mesh is really useful. Like I talked about before, you can mesh these devices together and downlink from them as well. So by default, that's enabled. You can choose what color the light is, essentially blue or white or off, and you can move it between sites as well. And you can scan for other access points and stuff around there. So let's go to our settings. Our settings here is sort of more of our global setup. We're in our site manager here. So we're going to create a new network. We'll call this the Tech Geeks for want of anything else. And then we have this concept here of passwords. We do have an open network. If you want to let everybody have full access to it, go for it. Enterprise, which at this moment in time supports a radius server. That's a way of having mass accounts already created for authentication. But what most people are going to use this for is passwords. And there are a number of categories already set up here where you can choose what profile this password or this is going to have access to. So in this instance, let's add in a password here. All right, this is our very exciting password. Okay, so let's add our password, and we've added it. Let's have a look. We're going to have this in site spinel, but if you did have others, for instance, like I have another one called Homebase, then that could be added in there as well. Then we get to this color coordination, and this is a great way of being able to connect all different APs together and group them in a way that's useful. So we could have these all blue. If they're in blue, then they are going to be able to pick up this setting. So black is all APs, I believe. So we should be able to turn this off for this one. All right. And we've got options where we can set our VLANs. We've got options for PMF and WPA3 if you want to turn those on, as well as setting up and download rates for this. So this is governed by the password that we have set here. We've grouped it into our standard setting one here, and when we've grouped all of these options together. So let's just save that, and I could come along now and I could choose, going to choose another passwords, the Tech Geeks 2. All right, and we're going to put this maybe into a different category, and these policies still same because it's all for this Wi-Fi name, but this is going to have a different management profile if I log in with this. So I'm going to still have all my band rating and everything that is down here. All right, that isn't unique to these passwords. It's unique to my Wi-Fi name, but these profiles are different. So now I've actually got my device accepted in here. I can now choose what I would like this, which network I would like this to be part of. So I'm going to choose this to be part of the blue network, and it's now going to go and pick up all those settings that I had good for the blue network that we set just there. All right, we can see it's picked up a channel. All right, we can see it's already now going to start broadcasting its SSID. And if I was probably to use my mobile phone here, and let's just grab this on here. All right, let's just join. My mobile phone should now join the network, and we should probably show one device. There we go, we've got a device, and we can have a look at the devices and the information that we've got in here for this. We could name it up later. We can move it to any of those specific groupings that we had talked about. We could change the VLANs or its download speeds. We can give it options for the bypass filters and everything else that's there, because there are features in here that we talked about, all right, for being able to do basic content filtering and other options like that. So if we were to go back to settings and into our Wi-Fi, we should find a number of categories of other options that we should be able to do from here. But I'm going to need to just find my way around this, because this is one of the first times I've actually been in this control panel. And let's see if we can find some of those ways to filter out some of the traffic. Okay, so our filtering options are found in settings, and very simply along here, filter, which we'll get to in a moment. This is some of the settings we can run in here in system, and we can have different users added in here if we want to, and then we can assign them this to each site. So if each site has its own settings. The thing we talked about here is that there is some basic content filtering that goes on. We have a list of a lot of applications that are already known. So if we were to choose Facebook, we could actually now just simply block Facebook. It's very simple, very easy like that. Obviously, we know there are ways around it. We probably, if we were going to do that, might want to also add in something like that as an option. All right, and now all of those users would be blocked from having access to Facebook as an app and Facebook as the website. A little bit of experimentation. It's not a firewall, but it does give you some useful options to start with in there. So our system that we'd already talked about are some of those features. The Wi-Fi is where we can control a lot of the other things that are going on in here that we talked about, and how we build this up in our advanced settings by setting our rate limits and our profiles. But we can then use these different categories to allow us to control all the different ways that a user is managed within inside that same SSID. If we just choose this option here, it will at least just show us an idea of what it has and how these have been optimized. I'm sure that there will become varying options that we can do to change how these actually perform. I will just want to change something here. So obviously we could come down and set a specific well, these are overrides for this. So we've chosen standard. We could now put it on a VLAN. We could now maybe give it a restriction of 200 megasecond down and 50 meg up, depending on your speed. You can have some options to bypass the filter. So we've got some basic options within inside each one of these options. So like for the large one here, you know, maybe this we were going to only choose that they can only have 5 meg download and 2 meg upload, but they could bypass the filter. So we're now building a way of each one of these having a separate set of options, and I think we'll see new features for this come as we go along. But obviously each one of these will now be applied to this password. So if you were at home for a basic simple, you could use the standard setting. You could set your users up with a password, and then you could do another password, and you could do the same and you keep it as standard. It doesn't really matter, but you could have a different password that just the adults in the house knew, all right, and they had no rate limits in here, but they could bypass the filter. So now we have got 2 passwords, the same SSID, but now we can have one that overrides and one that can't. I think this is a real potential for this type of product of what we're going to see in the future as this develops, and we see it across the switches as well. So I hope that's just given you just a rough browse around to see what you can see. Now we're collecting some information and some data of my mobile phone. It's identifying apps that I have running on here and what they're actually doing, which is pretty useful. And let's have a little look, and we can see which devices are doing most of the work. So we see a very simple, easy to use dashboard. VLANs are supported, we know, tick. Wireless meshing is supported, we know, tick. Grouping of access points together, really simply easy. Multiple passwords, same SSID, different profiles for each of those. We know we can categorize devices separately by choosing and even putting those into different categories, groups, and speeds just by device. As well, and even give devices the option to override the filter, as you can see there. So even that is a really good way forward. So really simple, easy to use dashboard, really minimal effort to get that all running. So hopefully that gives you an idea. We've talked about, do we think Alta Labs has a place in the market, certainly in this prosumer space, certainly in this space where we're looking for additional features, and we're looking for some office or enterprisey type business features that we can have in our small business, maybe even in our enterprise or at our home. We can see this here. So hopefully you've just found this, my meandering thoughts, somewhat useful as Alta Labs starts to hit here in Australia.